Hey guys, Chris from Sony here. In today's workshop, we're going to talk about mobile ES amplifiers and how to maximize the inputs, outputs, really take advantage of the power output that they have for any type of audio application upgrade. When we designed our Sony mobile ES amplifiers, there's really kind of a few things that we used as key pillars to kind of creating the best amplifier for you guys. And number one was power. There's no reason to put an amplifier in a car if it's not giving you adequate power for whatever you're upgrading in the vehicle, right? Next is we want to give you flexibility on taking advantage of any type of signal or inputs and outputs that you need to take advantage of in a particular application for any vehicle. This gives you the ability to really kind of upgrade any type of audio system for any customer. And then last, we want to give you full control over that system. So we give you a lot of really cool, unique ways to adjust the frequencies on your crossovers, things like that, to really get the perfect sound for any customer. So first, let's talk about power. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? And this is where both customers and you as a retailer really kind of judge us. As an amplifier manufacturer, you want to make sure that you're getting the meat that goes with the potatoes of the audio system, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to show you the power output capability of these amplifiers. And keep in mind, these are all CTA rated. So this is third-party verified power specs. So you're absolutely going to get this power output from these amplifiers in any given situation. Our 1ES, which is our monoblock amplifier, offers you 600 watts by 1 at 4 ohm and over 1,000 watts at 1 channel output at 2 ohm. Pretty stout, pretty powerful, and a great audio upgrade for any sub-amp system that you're putting into a vehicle. Our 4ES begins our multi-channel lineup. So that 4ES, along with all of our other multi-channel amps, gives you 100 watts per channel at 4 ohm and 165 watts per channel at 2 ohm. And on any of these multi-channel amplifiers, you can bridge each pair of channels down to a 4 ohm load at 330 watts of output at 4 ohm. It's pretty stout power. So even that 4ES gives you 100 watts by 4 at 4 ohm, 165 watts by 4 at 2 ohm, or 2 sets of channels at 330 watts of output at 4 ohm. That's pretty astounding power for a very small chassis amplifier. Our 5ES is really kind of the darling of the whole group. That gives you the same exact output on the multi-channel capability as the 4ES. It also gives you about 75% of the 1ES's power output. So you've got 450 watts at 4 ohm and 750 watts at 2 ohm, along with that 100 by 4, 165 by 4, or 330 by 2 for the multi-channel portion. Our 6ES and 8ES are pretty awesome as well. You take the same power output that the 4ES and the 5ES have on that multi-channel output side and just add the extra channels. You have the same exact power output on every set of channels on all of our multi-channel amps. This takes the guesswork out of setting up a system with our mobile ES amplifiers. This is pretty awesome. Many other manufacturers will, as they add amplifier channels to an amp, they'll reduce the power a lot of times because the chassis that they're working within, maybe they can't fit the components in there to keep that power output high, or they're using smaller components to kind of keep the chassis compact enough to put into most applications. We've actually given you the capability to be consistent. So what you're doing when you select the right mobile ES upgrade for a system, you're selecting the number of channel outputs that you need, guaranteeing the same amount of power regardless of how many channels of output that you have. So where the rubber meets the road, where the power hits the pavement, this is where we are with our amplifier lineup. So today's vehicles present a lot of signal challenges, right? You're trying to capture signal out of the vehicle and give it to an amplifier in a way that can be, used for whatever system upgrades that you're applying for that customer. So we are going to give you some tools within our amplifiers that allow you to take advantage of some of those situations. Keep in mind, and this is very important, if there's any type of summing or signal delay correction or anything like that that you would normally have to do for a standard amplifier, you'll still have to do that because our amplifiers do not have onboard processing or time alignment or anything like that. What we're going to do is we're going to show you some different options to manipulate the signal that's coming into the amplifier, but it's essentially combining or removing channels as you need them to kind of set up the audio system output. Okay. So if you've used any type of devices, maybe to present a load to the OEM amplifier or radio, maybe if you're using some signal correction or time alignment, you'll still have to use those devices pre-Sony Mobile ES amplifier in that system. Okay, so let's dive into our line input variations. So at the top here, we're going to show you the amplifiers that each one of these scenarios applies to. So the particular one on the screen here is our 1-4, 1-6, or 1-8 mode. And that depends on the amplifier that you're dealing with. So the 4ES, that's right here, would have a 1-4 mode. The 5ES would also have that same 1-4. The XM6ES, which is our 6-channel amplifier, would have a 1-6 mode. And the XM8ES has that 1-8 mode. What this essentially means, and you can see by the color coding on the input, which is your RCA inputs here, and your speaker outputs, which is the speaker leads that are coming out of the amplifier, it's a 1-to-1 relationship. So 1-4 on this 4ES that's pictured here means that channel 1 is going to channel 1 on the outputs. Pretty simple. Channel 2 is going to channel 2 on the outputs. Channel 3, channel 3, channel 4, channel 4. Easy enough. On a 1-6, on maybe a 6ES, you would have this right here. You'd have the 5 and the 6 also going channel 5 in, channel 5 out, channel 6 in, channel 6 out. On the 8ES, of course, with the 8 channels of input, you'd have those extra channels. You'll see here that we've noted that these channels are only applicable to both the 6ES and the 8ES, depending on which amplifier you're using, right? But that 1-4 is applicable to the 4ES and the 5ES amplifiers. And the 6ES has that 5 and 6 addition, and the 8ES has all 8 channels of input going 1-to-1 to the speaker outputs. Pretty simple mode, and honestly, this is where probably 80% of the amplifiers are hooked up. You're just going in with one signal and taking that one signal out to a set of speakers in the vehicle, and you're good to go. Next slide is going to take you into our 1-2 mode. This is essentially a stereo mode, and this is applicable on those same exact amplifiers, the 4ES, the 5ES, the 6ES, and the 8ES. So this is essentially just a 2-channel input mode. This might come up where the customer was swinging for the fences on a system upgrade, but maybe didn't swing for the fences on maybe a DSP upgrade. So maybe they had a 6 or even an 8-channel DSP, and you needed an extra set or two of channels really to maximize that capability, right? We're going to give you a stereo mode on the input side of our amplifiers to take advantage of that. So just 2 channels of input from that DSP or the radio or whatever you've got as a source unit coming into the amplifier will give you a stereo output on the applicable channels. Now, here's a cool feature about Sony Mobile ES amplifiers. Any of the odd channel inputs on any of these combined modes. So this 1-2 mode is a stereo mode. So channel 1 is an odd numbered channel input. So on the output side, channels 1 and 3 get that signal. So what we're essentially doing is channel 1 is an odd input. So we're giving you the same output on the odd outputs. So channels 1 and 3, odd numbers, get that channel 1 output. Okay, easy enough. Channel 2, since it's an even number, gives you the even numbered outputs. So channels 2 and 4 essentially get the right side. Let's call channel 1 left and channel 2 right. So channel 1, your left speakers are channels 1 and 3. Channel 2 would be your right side, so that would be channels 2 and 4. So we're essentially just kind of splitting the amplifier in half, odd numbers and even numbers. On any of our Mobile ES amplifiers, in any of these shared modes where you're kind of combining signal, any of the odd number inputs will give that signal to the odd number outputs. Easy enough. The even number inputs will give you the signal on the the even number outputs. Okay. So this is a pretty self-explanatory one. This is applicable on the 4ES, 5ES and the 8ES amplifiers here. This could be used to take advantage of any type of audio upgrade. Maybe you've just got 2 extra channels on a DSP and you need something to power 4, maybe 6 speakers, extra in the vehicle. Maybe it's just rear fill or something like that. You can use that stereo input and use those outputs on that amplifier accordingly. Next up on the input side would be the infamous 1+3, 2+4 mode. This is essentially our stereo mode here. Okay, channels 1 and 2 getting input, but it's got an extra set of channels. So remember what I said about the odd number channels on the input side giving the signal to the odd number outputs. So channels 1 and 3 are combined. Okay, so we're combining those signals. This is like a glorified Y adapter, if you will, without losing the voltage by splitting that signal going into 2 inputs on a standard amplifier, right? So you can combine channels 1 and 3, and that combined signal that you're getting from these 2 channels here is applied to your odd number outputs on the output side. So channels 1+3 goes to channels 1, 3, and then on applicable amplifiers like the 5, 6, and 8ES, channels 5 and 7. Channels 2 and 4, which are the even number inputs, give you the audio output for the even number outputs. So channels 2 plus 4 gives you the output for channels 2, 4, and on applicable amps 6 and 8. Okay, so odd to odd, even to even on the inputs versus the outputs all the time. And essentially, just to remind you, this 1+3, 2+4 is essentially the stereo mode with an extra set of input channels. This might be handy if you've got, for example, a Toyota Camry that has 4 distinct amplifier channels from the JBL amplifier that's on board going to the front section of that car. You've got the woofer in the door on each side, plus the tweeter on each side in the sail panel that are 1 discrete channel each. So you've got 1 channel of that JBL amp coming out for the woofer and the tweeter on the driver's side, let's say. You also, on that driver's side, have that middler on the dash of that Toyota Camry. And that's another discrete channel coming out of that JBL amplifier. So those 3 speakers in that Toyota Camry would need to be combined because that middler on the dash gives you your Bluetooth, your navigation, all of that stuff that you kind of need if you're retaining that factory radio and amplifier. So you can take that output from the JBL amplifier, pipe it directly into our Mobile ES amp, use that channel 1, which would be your woofer and tweeter, channel 3 for your middler, and now you've combined those on the input side, and now you can power those speakers, the replacement speakers that you're applying to that car with that Mobile ES amplifier. You do the same thing for the right side. Your channel 2, your woofer and your tweeter for the right side of the car. Your channel 4 would be your middler on the dash, and then you're combining those 2, and then you're able to power those speakers out of our amplifier for that audio upgrade. Next up is a pretty unique system mode, and this is 1-channel mode. So this fairly unique. It's not very common, but we wanted to give you this extra tool set just in case you needed it. This, of course, is applicable to our 1ES, our 4ES, and our 5ES. This was very handy when we did not yet have our 6 and 8-channel amplifiers available yet. And there's a lot of, really high-end multi-channel vehicles out there in the market. So that 1-channel input gave a technician the capability to maybe take the front quadrant of a car, maybe the driver's, compartment up there in the front left of the vehicle, that one kind of channel, if you will, input to the Mobile ES amplifier on a 4ES, for instance, and then having the capability to power 4 or more speakers with that amplifier for that one quadrant of the car. There were several big upgrades when the Cadillac Escalades came out. You were able to get the 4 channels of input, back to our amplifiers, and we had some technicians using one of our 4ES amplifiers for each quadrant of that car. So driver front left, passenger front right, passenger rear left, passenger rear right signals coming back, and one 4ES amplifier running each one of those sections of that car. It became a pretty creative way of kind of upgrading a very high-end vehicle just using our amplifiers without extra components in front of it. Next up, and this is kind of the last on the line input side, is a 1-2 5-6 mode. So this is essentially your stereo mode, right? But we're adding an extra set of channels. This is only applicable to our 6ES and our 8ES amplifiers. That channel 1 and 2 is exactly the same as it would be on the 4, 5, and 6 and 8 channels, right, for that stereo input. But we're giving you the ability to split the amplifier. So maybe you've got a front section of the car and a rear section of the car, and you want to split the signal that's going to each one of those sets. This stereo mode up front allows you to pipe that in to control the first 4 channels, and that's applicable for all of our amps except for the 1ES. And then on the 6ES and the 8ES amplifiers, we give you an extra set of channels. So that channel 5 and 6 would, of course, on the 6ES just power the channels 5 and 6 on the output side. But on the 8ES, it would also power channels 7 and 8. And again, channel 5 being an odd numbered input would give you 5 and 7 on that output side. Channel 6 would give you the 6 and 8 channel output on that side, being an even number output. Okay. So that kind of wraps up our signal input side. This gives you the creativity to really kind of, use your mind to just use our amplifiers for an audio upgrade, maybe minimizing the components you have to use before the amplifiers to kind of get signal combined. It also gives you a huge benefit in one particular factor, and that is Y adapters are great, but you split the voltage between those channels when you're piping those into an amplifier. And when you're using our amplifier, and instead of Y adapters to split those signals across multiple channels, you're not losing that voltage. Okay, so you're actually maintaining the signal voltage across the multiple channels, which gives you a big plus. You're not reducing the volume output of the eventual amplification of those channels. So we've talked about getting the input signal kind of multi-channel, setup that you need for any type of audio upgrade. But what we want to do now is talk a little bit about adding extra amplifiers and maybe minimizing the cable runs or increasing the ease of installation by using a Mobile ES line output of our amplifiers. So let's take a look here. So we've really got 3 modes on all of our line outputs on our Mobile ES amplifiers. And yes, every single Mobile ES amplifier has the same ones. So you're good to go on all of these. Our line output mode is handy because if you want to add an additional amplifier, let's say you're putting a 4ES amplifier in and you want to also add a 1ES for, of course, that subwoofer upgrade, you can kind of daisy chain these amplifiers together and utilize the signal that you've already kind of used on the 4ES and just pipe it into that 1ES for that instant upgrade. This reduces an extra set of RCAs that you may have to run front to back in that vehicle. In today's vehicles, it's not super easy to run RCA cables back and forth. So we want to make sure that we're giving you these tools as easily as possible to manipulate the system as you need to. So on through mode, which is available on all of our amplifiers, this is actually really handy. This takes channels 1 and 2 that you're piping into the amplifier for the input and provides them on the line output channels 1 and 2 untouched. So on any of the line outputs, these are not affected by any crossovers you've set on the amplifier. And even more so, they're not affected by any of the line input modes that you've set. So let's take, for instance, maybe you set that weird 1+3, 2+4 mode that we have, where you've combined the 1 and 3 channel and combined the 2 and 4 channel to take advantage of that Toyota Camry situation. What we're going to do here in through mode is give you just channels 1 and 2 on the output side. So in that same Toyota Camry, for instance, this is actually cool. That Camry has the low end frequencies you'd need for a subwoofer upgrade. So you would just take channels 1 and 3 and just pipe those through untouched to this line output side. And then you can hook up that 1ES directly to these outputs on that amplifier and you're good to go. Easy upgrade right there. So this is applicable on the 1ES, the 4ES, the 5ES, the 6ES, and the 8ES, which is our entire Mobile ES family. Next up, we're going to talk about all mode. So this one's pretty peculiar, but it's actually super handy. And we actually hear about a lot of installations in boats. We've got some high-end cabin cruisers, ocean-going vessels where somebody's doing a really high-end mobile ES upgrade inside the cabin of a boat. Yachts and things like that have different rooms, and they're using mobile ES amplification for those rooms. But on the exterior side of the boat, you need a different type of amplifier that's weather resistant, waterproof, and different types of speakers out there, right? The problem you have is, where do you get that source? Okay, maybe you want the same music playing both inside the cabin and on the deck of the boat, right? So this actually can come in handy where you use all mode. What that does is, on the 1ES, 4ES, 5ES, 6ES, and 8ES, our entire mobile ES family, all mode will combine all either 2 channels on the 1ES or all 4 channels of the rest of the amplifiers, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 channels. It will combine those signals together and provide that mono signal output on channels 1 and 2 of the output side. So this would allow you to get your stereo effect, or however you've got the cabin configured on the boat, and then collect all of the signals you're putting into those amplifiers and pipe those out to whatever your particular, favorite, outdoor marine upgrade brand is for the exterior side of the boat, with a full range signal of that signal you've given to the mobile ES amplifiers on the inside to that exterior sound setup. This is cool, super handy. The other application we've seen for this is RV upgrades, where same type of thing. You've got mobile ES amplifiers inside the RV, but you also have exterior speakers for, the campfire site or the barbecue grill that's outside the RV. And now you want that full range signal that's going out to some sort of exterior speaker. You can now provide that full range signal outside. And then last but not least is stereo mode. So this is applicable just to our multi-channel amplifiers, the 4ES, 5ES, 6ES, and 8ES. And what this does is it replicates our 1+3, 2+4 that you could have set on the input side. So let's take that Toyota Camry again, where you had the multiple speaker channels that you had to combine and be able to, simulate that left and right stereo signal when you're reproducing that, in the audio upgrade. So this gives you the same capability on the output side. So you're going to combine the input channels, regardless of what your input stage is set to 1+3, 2+4. And that's going to give you the left and right stereo output, combining those channels. And again, remember, odd to odd, even to even. So channels 1 and 3 that are combined, that are coming into the amplifier, are on channel 1 output for that line output side. And channels 2 and 4 are combined for that even number, that number 2 output on the line output side. So you're getting that left and right stereo signal output, which is pretty awesome. This is another great way to kind of upgrade an audio system. If you don't have enough channels on a DSP, or you're just trying to minimize the amount of cables you're running back and forth in a vehicle, you can take advantage of this. Maybe you're just doing some rear fill speakers with maybe a smaller amplifier. It doesn't need a lot of amplification. You can use this 1+3, 2+4 mode to get a stereo output to that and just provide that rear fill and be done with it. Easy enough. Okay. So that gives you a really cool image of a lot of, cool, unique scenarios where adding multiple amplifiers to a system. And again, it's not bound by whatever you're setting the input side on these amplifiers to. This is independent. So whatever signal you're giving to the channels on the input side, it's untouched by any crossovers, filters, or combinations you've set on the actual amplifier input side itself. You'll go ahead and get that full range signal of whatever those inputs are seeing straight through that line output side. So there you have it. Okay, so we've given you a lot of control over signal inputs and signal outputs, when you've got the line output side of the ES amplifiers. But here's the deal. You also have the speaker outputs that you have to manage, right? So assuming that you're not using a DSP or some sort of filtering source beforehand, you'll want to have full control over what your crossovers and kind of what the output of the amplifiers is for any audio upgrade. This also reduces the amount of equipment that you might need beforehand. If you're just doing maybe a deck and a couple amps and speaker upgrade for a vehicle, between our Mobile ES head units and, of course, our Mobile ES amplifiers, we give you all of the tools that you could possibly need to get the perfect sound for your customer. So these frequencies and crossovers that you can set on these are super beneficial. We're going to dive in right here. All right, so we have multiple filter settings for our multi-channel amplifiers. We're looking at our 4ES here on screen, and this is actually a really cool setup here. This filter here allows you to turn the filter off. So if you're using some sort of DSP or something like that, where you're managing the signals and the crossovers before the amplifier, you'll want to leave this off. Don't ever double filter as a general rule. It's just a bad habit to get into. You're not going to benefit if you have a low pass on the radio and a low pass on the amplifier. Some people get it in their head that that's just double making sure that nothing below that frequency is going to get through. And that's actually incorrect. What you're actually doing is doubling that filter slope in some cases. And if you've got different filters, maybe you've got a head unit that uses a different type of filter than our amplifier does, then now you'll have a couple inconsistencies with that kneecap on that filter range that is going to affect your sound system. And it's going to give you some weird things you have to kind of overcome with some troubleshooting capabilities. So leave that off if you've got some sort of other, filtering or crossover source in front of the amplifier. If you're going to use the amplifier for filtering, though, this is where this kind of gets pretty creative. You've got a high pass filter, okay? You've got a low pass filter, and you've got a band pass filter. This allows you for maybe a three-way setup just using this 4ES or any of our multi-channel amplifiers. We've got the range multiplier here. So the standard that it's set to by default is 50 to 500. Of course, that's great for either a high pass or a low pass for sure. But when you get up here, you want to multiply that to get a higher frequency, maybe for a high pass for tweeters or something. You've got a 500 to 5K. So this gives you a better kind of control over that frequency that's going out to that speaker output. Our high pass filter and low pass filter dials here allow you to go and set this particular to whatever you need for your speaker setup. The white highlighted values here are what is set if you are in the multiplier mode. So that range increase here. By default, of course, it's not highlighted, and those are the numbers here. If you select the multiplier mode here, that 500 to 5K, it's the highlighted values here. Okay, so you go 500 to 5K as you go around that dial instead of the 50 to 500 that it defaults to. Keep that in mind. This gets a little confusing for some people. If you're setting a band pass, that's pretty awesome. You'll want to set both the high pass and the low pass accordingly. Okay, so make sure that you're setting that up correctly. The manual that comes with the amplifier and our how-to section on sony.com/car will give you a little bit more information on that detail as well. The input sensitivity is super critical, okay? And we want to make sure that you understand one important note, and that is you want this to be as low as possible while giving the volume output that you expect out of that amplifier. Of course, if you're using a Sony Mobile ES high output radio with 5-volt pre-outs, then this can certainly be set pretty low, right? You don't want to raise the noise floor or do anything else by turning this all the way up. You might have to do that if you've got a lower voltage on the line input side with maybe a lower end unit that's powering it. Maybe you've got a DSP that has a lot of cool control. It's only 2 volts out, which is pretty subpar in most cases, right? So what you're going to do is in that case, you'll have to crank this up a little bit. The unfortunate part about raising that is the noise floor in that system comes up, and you'll now have to battle that. And there's a very fine line that you hit with raising that to get the volume that you want without raising the noise floor and all the extra things that come along with raising that. So by rule, by default, you want this to be as low as possible. So having a very high voltage input is going to allow you to keep that lower and keep that system sounding good with higher dynamic range on the output side. Okay. Now you can remember, we talked about this in the power section of this workshop, but you can bridge the channels as well. Okay. So you have channels 1, channels 2, channels 3, and channels 4 here. And we actually make it very clear on what to hook up when you're bridging these channels. Remember that each of these channels individually has 100 watts by per channel at 4 ohm, 165 watts at 2 ohm per channel. Or if you bridge this one bridged set is going to give you 330 watts at 4 ohm. Okay. So a lot of power here, a lot of control with these filters and the crossover settings. Gives you all the control that you need to set up the audio system perfectly for your customer. So I'm hoping you took away a few really cool tips on how to use these mobile ES amplifiers very effectively in a car audio system upgrade. If you need more information about these amplifiers, contact your local distribution partner. Or if you just want to learn a little bit more about the Sony Mobile ES brand, then visit sony.com/car for more information.